I went through Hurricane Katrina. At the time, I was living in Mira, Louisiana, which is a suburb of New Orleans, just outside of New Orleans in St. Bernard Parish. And we were actually in the process of moving from there to Knoxville, Tennessee. So my last day at work was the Friday before the storm, which is significant because I worked at the Times-Picayune newspaper. And as a news person, you didn't leave for storms, so I had always been there for hurricanes. I'd been there 11 years and had never been through a big one. But on this one, because my time at work was done and I was getting ready to move, I was able to evacuate with my family. Hurricane Katrina was interesting because nobody thought it was going to hit. Everybody thought it was going to turn at the last minute because, at least for the time that I had been there, they always turned at the last minute. So we were packing up our house to make a move and having a garage sale and all the things you do before you're going to move. And then at the last minute, it looked like, well, it's not going to turn. We better get the city ready for a big storm. So on the Saturday before the storm hit on Monday, we were having a garage sale and watching the crowd come and go as the reports changed. And we decided that we would try to call the airport because we were due to fly out on Wednesday for a vacation before our move. And we thought, you know, this storm probably will turn, but they're going to close the airport as a precaution, and we need to get out of town early if we plan to make our vacation. So we called the airport. They didn't know about any storm at that point. A few hours later, they did know about a storm, and they put us on a plane leaving New Orleans on Sunday night. Now remember, the storm hit on Monday. So I took our 2 young children and went out to run all the errands that one runs before they leave on a vacation. And my husband called me and he said, the airline just called. They've canceled the Sunday flights. We're leaving in 4 hours. We boarded up as much of our house as we possibly could, the lower windows, because when you're going to have a hurricane, you do try to put boards against your windows so they don't break. Because then all the water and everything gets into the house and it's going to be a big mess. So you think that's going to protect your house. We carried a few things upstairs. We carried all of our photo albums upstairs and put them into a bathroom that had no windows and closed the door. We didn't move any furniture up. We didn't have time to do that. We moved maybe a few mementos up, but not many. We really just focused on the pictures. And we threw things in suitcases and we left. Monday, the storm hit. I've seen videos of our parish, of the building where I would have been had I stayed for the storm. And the storm itself came and went, and everything seemed like it was okay. But then about 15 miles of levee broke right outside our parish, and the water came flooding in. Eventually, our house took on 11 feet of water, and it sat there for 2 weeks. We were in Hawaii on our vacation, which I guess at that point it doesn't matter where you are because all you can do is call insurance and call FEMA and hope for the best. You couldn't get back into New Orleans or the surrounding area even if you wanted to. When our vacation ended, we still couldn't get back into New Orleans, so we flew to Knoxville where we were moving. We had no home at that point. We had a house under construction. So basically we landed at the Knoxville airport with 2 toddlers and 4 suitcases of Hawaiian clothing and no vehicle. We ended up getting a ride over to a hotel across from the airport, and they happened to be a Red Cross shelter, so that was our home base for the next 2 weeks. We tried to make it back to New Orleans to salvage our home in September, but we had plane reservations and Hurricane Rita hit, and again, we couldn't get back into New Orleans. So we had to wait till early October, and we drove down there in a rented vehicle and went to our home, and that's when we discovered exactly what had happened. Getting into the parish, you had to go through a roadblock with police. They had to make sure that you had reason to be in the parish. It was like a wasteland, a ghost town, no one in sight. We couldn't get into our front door. Our house was still standing, I should say that. One window was broken and there was some noticeable damage, but it was still standing. We couldn't get into the front door because the front door was so swollen from the water logging. So we climbed over a portion of the back fence that had fallen down, went in through our back door. We had utility poles in the backyard. We had a spa on our screened-in back porch, and those things are very heavy, and it was full of water, and it had lifted up off the ground and turned sideways. Our home, you had to trek through just about a foot of muck in the first floor. The refrigerator had fallen down. A couch had wedged between two doors. All of the pictures on the walls were gone, never to be found again. Interestingly, some things on shelves were sitting right where they had been. It was obvious they'd been sitting in water for a long time, but they were still sitting there. We made it up to the second floor, and the water had stopped 1 foot short of our first floor ceiling. So our second floor was okay, which was great because that's where we had a lot of our valuables. Okay, we were able to salvage a lot of things from our upstairs. A lot of our valuables were up there. All of our bedrooms were up there, so we got some clothing. A lot of things you couldn't take. If they were contaminated by mold, or maybe even you thought they were because you couldn't wash them, you couldn't take them. My husband's truck had been parked in front of our house, in front of the garage, to brace the garage door. It was a green Toyota Tundra. And when we pulled up to the house, we were amazed because a green truck was sitting in front of our garage. And we thought, wow, it survived. And then we looked closer, and it was a green Chevy truck sitting in front of our garage. My husband's truck had floated away, never to be found again. And a different truck, same color, floated in and landed there. It took us a while to salvage everything, to clean everything, obviously to get settled again in Knoxville. But we were lucky we had flood insurance. We got a full payout. We even managed in time to sell our house as is there, and someone now has renovated and is living in it. So now, this much out from the storm, life is pretty well back to normal. It was a horrible experience that I don't want to go through again, but in some ways it was a good experience. It taught me a lot about myself. It taught our family a lot about relying on each other, and it made us realize what's important in life.